Hi, this is Jürgen Rasmussen. Welcome to the Provocative Hypnosis vlog. This one is about when NLP patterning backfires, when NLP patterning fails or seems to make things worse. The lessons in this vlog also applies to other, self-improvement techniques or any attempt to change or manage your state. If you take a solid look around in the NLP world and in the hypnotherapy world, you'll likely make an interesting observation, and that is that NLP provides some remarkable processes and patterns for change that can be very powerful. Any experienced NLP trainer has likely had results with clients that just seem miraculous for pretty much anyone, including people who work in the mental health fields. I'm talking about severe compulsions disappearing in minutes, people getting over severe trauma, phobias, allergic responses changing. This is one area, for example, in NLP where if you talk to people who practice cognitive behavioral therapy or rational emotive behavior therapy, which are really useful modalities, but if you ask them, do you have a reliable way of helping people to change an allergic response, for example? This is outside of their models of the world. It's just not something they talk about or really do. So there is some true magic to be found. That's likely going to be your first observation. Of course, another observation is that people vary widely in terms of how well they are able to meaningfully respond to an intervention or a process where some NLPer is guiding them. Of course, it's not the tools in and of themselves. It's the client's ability to meaningfully engage and kind of respond and reorganize, based upon the instructions. So, but you'll notice a wide variety of responses, from, as I said, miracles to people not changing at all. And you'll likely find something else too that's interesting, and that is you'll find quite a few very knowledgeable folks who seem neurotic as hell and highly incongruent. And some of them seem to be getting more neurotic and more incongruent as time goes on. And it's like, well, if they have these powerful tools for change, how can they be so batty? How can they be so neurotic? How can they be so seemingly nuts? Now, first of all, some incongruence will likely always be there. It's part of the human condition. Any actual human being will always fall short of anyone's utopian ideas of how a human being should be. This is probably why there is much wisdom in the saying, be grateful that you've never met your heroes. As soon as you put someone on a pedestal and you get to actually know them, they are likely to disappoint. And there are a few exceptions of this. There are people who really seem to have their shit gotten together. So don't let the perfect get in the way of the good, as another cliche saying has it. Now, there are many reasons why uh, someone might, turn their symptoms up or not respond too well. But here is a very, very common one. This is a trap to watch out for. It's not inherent in the NLP teachings. It's just that a lot of people can very easily make this sense, make this meaning out of how NLP is very often taught. So let's start with what a so-called psychological symptom very often is. And when I use the word symptom right now, I'm not talking about something medical or a disease. I'm talking about a pattern of cognition and emotion and behavior that kind of seems to be stuck. It's not working, it's not functional, it's on repeat. and it seems stuck. Here's a very useful formula. A symptom is thoughts and feelings plus resistance. Thoughts and feelings plus resistance. If you do this work for a while, you'll discover that no thought or feeling is in and of itself dangerous or bad or really a problem, so to speak. But if you mark out some cognition, some concept, some emotion as bad, as taboo, as a no-no, as something that you must not feel and have to get rid of and have to control, then you're going to be doing a lot of thinking around that particular topic because you've marked it out. And then when it appears, you likely tense and clench and stop breathing, and that will seem to lock it into place. You meet it with resistance. And there are two typical ways that we resist. We either fight it, so we try to like repress it or suppress it and force it away. But of course, that only has a tendency to increase the intensity of it. Or we demand that our experience be different in a positive direction, like I should be happy or I should be in control, and we try to ruminate ourselves out of it. Now, there is a certain madness in trying to think yourself out of a shitstorm or think yourself out of a thought storm, because all you'll very often be doing is adding more thinking to a already very, very busy mind. And this is what very often keeps the symptoms in place. So anything that contributes to the resistance or keeps the resistance going will likely keep the symptoms going. Anything that can reduce the resistance will likely begin to melt away those types of thoughts, cognitions, and emotions and behaviors. Now, since many, NLP patterns can be quite powerful, you can make things worse if you don't get this, because what happens with some people is that, you see, if you try to do NLP style patterning or virtually any technique, but you do it in the service of resistance, meaning if your mindset or intent is that, oh shit, I must not feel this, but if I only do this pattern, then it will go away. If you do your patterning in service of that, then the patterning becomes, it just reinforces the resistance. The mind just gets more busy, and you're likely to turn your symptoms up. Now, let me make this very key distinction. There's nothing wrong with doing patterning. There's nothing wrong with meditating. I meditate every day. I love it. There's nothing wrong with any of that stuff. It's good. And there's also nothing wrong with turning on the TV or changing your breathing or attending your attention elsewhere. But if you do those things from a place of resistance, of demanding you not feel something or demanding that your experience be different, then those very patterns and techniques have a tendency to contribute to the resistance and thereby increase the symptoms. So this is a key distinction. And when people report, being stuck, not being helped, or even increasing their symptoms, this is something to scan for. This is something to be alert for. I had an insight, I don't know, someplace between a decade and a decade and a half ago. I had a client, a school teacher, who was very scared to do public speaking. And he had seen a NLP practitioner who had actually done some good work with the guy. And this guy was pretty good at visualizing and in conscious awareness. So the NLP guy had been able to notice accurately that the client would be making this image in his mind of a very critical audience with these big eyes that was kind of, staring at him. And when he saw that image, he'd get afraid. So the NLP guy did a typical classic NLP intervention where he just changed the image. He just had the image turn into a pleasant smile and open eyes of the audience looking at him and them being on the same level as him visually, and that really changed the feelings. It really changed the kinesthetics. So it gave my client uh, an experience of just how powerful his thinking was, and how he was kind of generating his own experience. Now, when he came to me, he said, "Look, it's gotten a lot better, and when I'm able to make that new image, it feels really good, and I've had several good presentations, but there's always this fear of the old image coming back, and if the old image comes back, I need to know that it's not going to come back because that kind of freaks me out." And I remember having a kind of eureka moment or aha moment at that time, thinking, why on earth should that image scare him? Like, if I imagine people looking at me in that way, I kind of get playful. It doesn't scare me an inch. So why should any internal representation scare you? As the theosopher Sydney Banks, the inspiration behind the Three Principles movement, used to say, and it very accurately was, if only people could learn to not be afraid of their own experience, that would change the world. And I think this is so true. True liberation is not having a technique or needing to pump yourself up into some sort of high performance or special state to be able to perform. True liberation is when you are able to have any internal experience that you're having without resistance. Meaning, if you can have that image of the judgmental audience show up and have no resistance and be able to see it as a thought, then it's game over. So my work with him was not about making the new image more stable, but it was about reducing the resistance to the old image and helping him see it as a thought, so that when it appeared, it no longer freaked him out because he was able to see it really just is a mental image. And once he was willing and able to have that particular experience, the image no longer came up. It wasn't too interesting. It didn't bother him anymore. There was no fear associated with that particular thought. So in the end, we are only really afraid of our own experience. We are scared of the thoughts that appear because we don't see them as thoughts, and because they seem so real, and because the voice in the head and the images that show up seem to be who we fundamentally are. Help people see through those illusions, and you'll take change work to a very different level. So contemplate this, experiment with this, and any thoughts you might have, feel free to share and to let me know.